Prognostically significant was nostril. So if you have low nostril, you have poorer survival. If you have high nostril, you have better survival. That means it gives an indication that nostril may be tumor individual, but we don't know that. So that is the function of nostril. One study. So what is nostril? It's nitric oxide synthase traffic inducer. So nostril was described to bind to eNOS from the cell membrane, bring it inside, and reduce its function and reduce level of nitric oxide production. So sequestering eNOS was the function of nostril. So we said, okay, that is interesting. So what we did, we checked that, okay, what nostril that is associated with survival in pancreatic cancer patient is doing here. So what we found that nostril was inhibiting the eNOS phosphorylation. Not only sequestering, but inhibiting the eNOS phosphorylation, because eNOS phosphorylation is important for the generation of nitric oxide. So nostril inhibited eNOS phosphorylation, reduced nitric oxide. And it was regulated by another microRNA, NER221, that was described to be highly differentially expressed microRNA in pancreatic cancer as compared to the controls. So there was a nice regulatory loop between nostril, nitric oxide, and the nitric and NER221. And so we concluded that nostril is a negative regulator of disease aggressiveness. But the point here is that nitric oxide, both produced by NOS2 and also produced by NOS3, is important for pancreatic cancer development and progression. That is the point I wanted to make. One other cytokine I'd like to mention a little bit more in detail, that is macrophage migration inhibitory factor. And macrophage migration inhibitory factor is called because when it was discovered as a factor that was secreted by T cells, but it inhibited the random migration of macrophages in vitro. So it doesn't mean that MIF always in vivo inhibit the migration of macrophages, but this name was given based on this in vitro observation. But in fact, MIF can also act as a chemoattractant of macrophages, but I won't go into that detail. But I just mentioned that how the MIF came into existence. So this is a pro-inflammatory cytokine. Yes, the alpha-synuclein inhibitor factor. It was described as a pro-inflammatory cytokine. It expressed in epithelial and a number of inflammatory cells. And to answer your previous question, it's also expressed by a number of tumor cells. And so it regulates immune and inflammatory responses, increase expression in many tumors. Are 1 and 2, it enhances enzymes like COX2, NOS2 that enhances or catalyzes the reaction that produces reactive species, and it inhibits, in fact, p53 function and RBP2 function. So based on these and several other functions of MIF, it was described as a link between inflammation and cancer. So I thought that I will talk about MIF. That is also one of my insights in pancreatic cancer research. So we started by first doing immunohistochemical analysis of tumors in several cohorts of pancreatic ductal adenocarcinoma. You see increased expression of MIF here. And again, the Kaplan-Meier survival analysis. If you have high MIF, you have very poor survival. If you have low MIF, you have better survival as compared to the high MIF survival group. Pancreatic cancer never better survival. This is a multivariate analysis to show that MIF is a candidate independent predictor of prognosis in pancreatic cancer. And then it is very important to validate these observations in several independent cohorts, which we did. You can see in 3 different cohorts and one publicly available data set in a recent data set that was published in Nature Medicine that we took the data and checked for MIF expression, and you can see the increased MIF expression was associated with poor survival in pancreatic cancer. So that is again an association. We don't know what MIF is doing. That was simply an association with survival as a biomarker. So we did a study where we expressed MIF in the pancreatic cancer cell lines and did the orthotopic xenografts. You can see that MIF expressing tumors were larger in size and also tumor weight, and they also had higher metastasis in different organs. Most interestingly, and the control tumors there are poorly to moderately differentiated. We did the gene expression array analysis to see that MIF induced a change in the global gene expression profile, and again I will not go into the details of this study, but what we saw that it induces changes in the EMT related genes. For example, MIF expressing tumors have reduced epinephrine, increased lamentin, and GLB1. So we wanted to see whether what is going on in here. In the meantime, recently, after we published that data, a paper came out in Nature Cell Biology, and we were very happy to see that paper, that it showed that exosomal myth is very important for preparing a metastatic missing liver for the pancreatic cancer cells. And what it said that the surgically resected patient who had increased exosomal myth has much higher chances for metastasis into liver. So these findings suggested that exosomal myth finds the liver for metastasis and may be a prognostic marker for the development of pancreatic cell liver metastasis. So we went back to our human samples, and we found here too, like in mouse, that no myth had well-differentiated tumors here, high myth, clearly differentiated tumors. So we took an integrated transcriptomic approach to answer the questions that are there molecular distinction in these two tumor groups, and what are the mechanistic and functional role of myth in tumor progression. So without going into the details, I will show you the schematic. This just came out in August issue of Cancer Research, where we showed that myth induces PI3 kinase AKT signaling. It was known before, but what we described that this signaling enhanced the expression of NER301D, which inhibited a novel tumor inhibitory gene, tumor suppressor NR3C2. The role of NR3C2 we described as inhibitor of PNC. So when 3OB is increased, inhibits NR3C2, it enhances PNC, and that can enhance the progression. What we don't know right now, and we are working on, that what is here, what is leading to the increased expression of NER301D. So to bring this idea further towards therapeutic model, what we did, that we again used the same mouse model which I described. We deleted myth, and we found that when you delete myth here, that is NKTC, you see much longer survival as compared to the mouse that has wild type myth. So that's and we also induce oncogenic P53 mutation in ulcerative colitis. Increased expression of inflammatory mediators, example MYF and nitric oxide, enhances disease aggressiveness in pancreatic cancer, and targeting MYF and nitric oxide induced signaling increased survival in mouse model with lethal pancreatic cancer. So that provides a proof of concept that it can be further moved towards more preclinical studies and then to clinical trials. And the highly complex interaction of immune and inflammatory signaling determines the overall effect of inflammation and tumor genesis. I will stop here. Thank you very much for your attention.
You could elaborate on the changes in the microRNA. How quickly does that happen?
So in our hand, when we expose the cells to nitric oxide, different pancreatic cancer cells, you see the expression of it. So we did microRNA array analysis. So in 48 hours, we see the differential expression of a number of different microRNA, including 221 and several other microRNA. So within 48 hours. In the mouse situation, in the mouse model, where you have deletion of NOS2 or MYF, there also you see differential expression of microRNA. But we are doing a time point now by sacrificing the mice after, for example, 4 weeks and 8 weeks, when they start showing the neoplastic changes. So we can't answer to that question in vivo, but in vitro within 48 hours we see changes.
Same course basically as DLT?
Yes.
How
So MYF functions by its binding to several different receptors. So there is a receptor complex on the surface, CD74, and then CD44 inside the cell. So it binds to CD74, but CD44 is important for transmitting the signaling of MYF. This can also come inside the cells through micro-phenophytosis. And once it is inside, it can activate House signaling pathway. It can activate your COX-2 pathway by enhancing phospholipase A and arachidonic acid metabolism. It can also enhance NF-kappa B through that signaling. Also, MIS can bind to CXC2 and CXCR4 receptor. So CXC2 and CXCR4 are also important in many different cancers, including pancreatic cancer. And in fact, its binding to CXCR4 can lead to that chemoattractive function, which I mentioned in the beginning of my talk.
So is the NuvaRAF, the KRAF, having direct transcriptional effects on MIS?
We don't know, but mutant KRAS definitely induce inflammation, and you see that generation increased expression of NOS2. Whether it is going through TNF-alpha, other cytokines, IL-6, IL-1 beta, or direct KRAS. Okay, thank you very much.
I see that the 2 years ago, I think no, we just sent it too late. Okay, so as Tom mentioned, your handouts are not going to correlate exactly with this talk, but it should be similar. So Thomas Yates is PhD from biochemistry at the University of Virginia, subsequently did postdoctoral studies at Yale University, and he joined NIAID in 1988, became a senior investigator in the Laboratory of Phosphotensis in 1996. The title, Knox Family NADPH Oxidases. Tom.
So we're going to switch now from the NOX enzymes to the NOX enzymes. The NOX being a contraction for NADPH oxidases. And I see a number of interesting parallels between tumorigenic effects on NOS and the NOX enzymes as well. And I'll bring out some of those interesting parallels in the later part of my talk. So the history of this field concerns this remarkable feature of phagocytic blood cells, such as neutrophils and monocytes. They have this remarkable capacity for generation of large amounts of superoxide anion, which is a free radical formed by donation of a single electron to molecular oxygen. And the superoxide anion is very unstable. It's free radical plus it's charged, and it will rapidly dismutate either spontaneously or catalytically to form hydrogen peroxide. And in phagocytic cells such as neutrophils, you have a peroxidase, myeloperoxidase, that uses hydrogen peroxide and chloride to make the hypochlorous acid or Clorox bleach. And the hydrogen peroxide and the Clorox are both very potent bactericidal agents. And so neutrophils are famous for this so-called respiratory burst, which is a rapid consumption of molecular oxygen that actually has nothing to do with respiration, but has everything to do with this enzyme complex called NADPH oxidase, which is a multi-component enzyme that assembles from its components that are usually maintained in a dissociated latent state. So with the event of engulfment of bacteria, you have generation of these microbicidal oxidants that kill bacteria. And there are patients who don't do that. They have a condition called chronic granulomatous disease, and they suffer from remarkable susceptibility to what we would normally consider low-grade pathogens. Things like Staph aureus and Aspergillus mold can be various events. Terry Malik and John Gallen have accumulated the largest cohort of patients with chronic granulomatous disease here at the NIH. And we now know that the genetic lesions that give rise to this defect in this respiratory burst oxidase can affect any one of these six components of this enzyme complex. The core of it is the transmembrane riboscytochrome, which is membrane embedded, translocates from secondary granules and fuse to the nascent forming cytosome, and you have the other supportive cytosolic factors, GTP-RAC, and phosphorylated other phagocyte oxidase factors that come together and give rise to this respiratory burst during the events of phagocytosis. So this oxidase has been known for decades, and we now know in this post-genomic era, since the late 90s, that this enzyme is but one representative of a whole family of NOX enzymes, which is now summarized here in this schematic slide. So that the GP91-FOX core component, the flavocytochrome of the phagocyte system, is renamed as NOX2. that's a long story on it. So, but the first of the non-phagocytic enzymes is NOX, now NOX1. And we have NOX3, NOX1, 2, 3, and 4. They all have very similar structure. They all share in common conserved sequences that are required for binding of NADPH in the cytosolic reductase domain, blading binding center, and two membrane-embedded helical segments that have conserved histidines that coordinate two heme moieties, so that you have this enzyme that takes electrons from cytosolic stores, passes them through the membrane, donates them to molecular oxygen in an extracytoplasmic compartment such as the phagosome. So, as mentioned here, these other NOX enzymes are very similar in structure, and their homology to the phagocytic prototype is on the order of 25 to 55% identical sequence. So we have this NOX5 enzyme that has an amino-terminal extension that contains these calmodulin-like calcium-binding EF hands, and this enzyme is calcium activated. And then we have the so-called dual oxidases, DUOX1 and 2, that also have calcium-binding EF hands, and then another amino-terminal extension with another membrane-embedded segment, and an ectodomain with peroxidase homology. So you have NADPH oxidase and peroxidase domains in the dual oxidases. So just to give you an outline of where today's session is going, I'll start, I'm going to emphasize that these other non-phagocytic oxidases are the most abundant in epithelial cells, and they all have roles in host defense, inflammation, oxidative stress. And I'll start with an overview of the structure, expression patterns, and functions, provide an outline of what's been learned from NOX mutations in both mouse and man, and then I will dwell on three separate topics, work that in our lab has highlighted functions of NOX1, NOX4, and DUOX in three different tissues. Here, colon is a prevalent oxidase in colon epithelium that has a lot of similarities with the phagocyte oxidase and is responsive to microbial patterns in the gut. In the case of NOX4, we and others have emphasized its induction by TGF-beta, and it appears that it has pro-fibrotic effects when overexpressed. And then, in the case of the airway, the DUOX, we have studies indicating a role both in antimicrobial and pro-inflammatory responses. So, as my earlier slide indicated, all of these NOX enzymes are electron carriers. They're membrane embedded, and they take electrons from cytosolic stores, NADPH, to get 2 electrons from NADPH. And these are passed in series to molecular oxygen, giving rise to the superoxide anion as the primary product. And in all of the reconstituted or native systems where we overexpress these NOX enzymes, we can detect superoxide. And then, in contrast, the dual oxidases with this peroxidase-like ectodomain, when we reconstitute these enzymes in transfected cell models, we don't detect the superoxide intermediate. And we and others are thinking that this peroxidase-like domain has more to do with peroxide generation rather than peroxide utilization. But I'll have more to say about that later. So these core NOX components, as I say, are photoenzymes. They're the electron carriers. And we and others have found over the years that they're not standalone enzymes. They have other protein partners. In the case of NOX 1, 2, and 3, we have a requirement for GTP-loaded RAC. So these are all RAC-dependent enzymes. And they also have this NOX activator component, or its homolog, P67-FOX, that binds a RAC in a direct fashion that's GTP-dependent, and that partner endows the enzymes with a GTP sensitivity. We have this other NOX organizer component, or its homolog, P47-FOX, which is a modular protein that links interactions with P22-FOX and the NOX activator components. And then we have the P22-FOX component itself as a common partner to NOX 1, 2, 3, and 4, and it acts as a stabilizer, a stable subunit of these heterodimers, and it has a role in the maturation of these enzymes. And then we have, in the case of the dual oxidases, we have something that acts like the P22-FOX. There's also a maturation factor, which has been called DUOX activator. So to demonstrate this NOX P22-FOX interaction and its consequences in maturation and translocation, we have shown in this easily transfected model, HEK cells, the endogenous P22-FOX is detected in an endoplasmic reticular pattern condensed around the nucleus, and when overexpressing transfected 22-FOX, we see the same ER pattern. But when we express NOX1 or NOX3, we see that the P22-FOX then translocates from the ER out to the plasma membrane. So these cells have an outline of the plasma membrane staining for P22-FOX. And the cells that are not transfected, you see they're not staining as brightly for 22-FOX, and they have the EO-like pattern. So it appears that the co-expression of the NOx chains stabilizes higher levels of the 22-FOX in these cells. So they co-stabilize and they co-translocate, and then the enzymes are disposed in the plasma membrane. They deliver their reactive oxidants to extracellular compartments. Now, a similar thing goes on in the case of Duox and its interaction with the Duox activator. It's also a maturation factor, and for years, investigators have tried to detect Duox activity in transfected models, and it was only after Helmut Grafberger described these so-called maturation factors that are required to enable the exit of Duox from the ER compartment. And the two proteins go together, undergo Golgi-based carbohydrate modifications, and then you detect the two in a covalent isosulfide link complex on the plasma membrane. And only when both are co-expressed can you reconstitute H2O regeneration in these cell models. So here I've cataloged a variety of observations described over the